So I don't know about you, Cindy, but I know when I was especially first starting my business, figuring out how to find my ideal customer with their ideal decision maker was a real challenge. And that's why I'm so excited to introduce our listeners to this amazing directory resource called The Nonprofitist. Have you heard of it?
I have. I'm actually a member, as are a lot of my clients, because it's, hard to find new business. And I think what's hardest about it is like figuring out where nonprofits are actually looking for the kind of help that we provide. And that's what Nonprofitist is. They are a directory. So nonprofits looking to get expert help can come and search and find people local or international to hire out the kind of support they need. It's to my knowledge, like I don't know of any other directories like that specifically in the nonprofit sector.
What I love about it is that the decision makers are coming to this
Mm.
directory with the right frame of mind, right? They know what they're looking to hire for. And from being on the nonprofitist site, it's super organized, it's super clean, it's super easy to navigate. And so it's just a really great matchmaking tool for projects and customers to work together.
Yeah. And they're a community too. So you will also be able to access ongoing professional development opportunities and learning. So there's so much there. And it really fits with, I think, our sort of ethos around community over competition, where there's sharing and support. And again, finding clients. So if you
Definitely.
want to check out, so it's a by invitation only community, but you can request an invitation because you're a listener to our podcast. Just go to nonprofit.ist/confessions and fill in the form. Welcome to the Confessions Podcast. I'm Cindy Wagman.
And I'm Jess Campbell. We're two former in house nonprofit pros turned coaches and consultants to purpose driven organizations.
After years of building up our separate six-figure businesses from scratch, we've thrown a lot of spaghetti at the wall and have lived to see what sticks.
We're on a mission to help other nonprofit coaches and consultants looking to start or scale their own businesses past the six-figure mark by pulling back the curtain.
Whether you're still working inside a nonprofit and thinking of one day going out on your own, or you've been running your consulting business for years, you understand that working with nonprofits is just different. We're giving you access to the business leaders who serve nonprofits as their clients. The people who truly get it.
No more gatekeeping, no more secrets. This podcast is going to give you an inside look at what running a successful nonprofit coaching and consulting business looks like. Basically, we're asking people how much money they make, how they get paid, and what has and hasn't worked in their businesses.
Listen in as these leaders share their insights, their numbers, and the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to building a nonprofit coaching or consulting business. We're going to empower you to make the power moves that give you the income and freedom you set out to create from day one.
You ready? Let's go. Hey, Cindy.
Hey, Jazz.
We are back with another episode, this one featuring the one and only April Walker of Philanthropy for the People. I cannot wait for everyone to listen to this conversation.
This could not come at a better time. So we are talking about sabbaticals or taking time off and resting and unplugging. And I'm actually currently booking a 3-week holiday for next summer. So I love everything she talked about. But one of the things I want every consultant to hear is that you can do it, that your clients, people are not going to get mad at you for taking time off.
No. In fact, what I really took away from our conversation with April was how taking a sabbatical had only benefits, whether it
Mm.
was the relationship with her clients and establishing boundaries, to her reminding herself that rest doesn't need to be earned, that it's going to make her, frankly, a better entrepreneur and business owner by establishing these breaks in her business. It was just such a master class. And what I appreciated from her was just the step by steps and the details she shared with us, the really nitty gritty of how not only was she able to take it, but what was it like when she was on it? And how was it coming back? Just all the things.
Yeah, there's so many great details in this conversation, but most of all, just like that transparency and openness. And I think it's such a role model for all of us around intentional rest and
Mhm,
how that's so important to our well-being, and we are our businesses. So
mhm, mhm,
it also affects our bottom line.
So, at the time of this podcast episode coming out, as we start looking towards the holiday season and hopefully a time where people can take a rest, I hope you enjoy this conversation with April and all of the takeaways we both got from it.
Enjoy.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Confessions with Jess and Cindy. We are so lucky because we have the one and only April Walker of Philanthropy for the People here to talk all things about her business today. Hi, April. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, that's me. Happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me. Excited for the conversation.
Yes, us too. So, as we've begun to talk with our fellow nonprofit coaches and consultants, one of the things that I think would be helpful for folks to know is who you are, what your business is, who you serve.
Got it. Happy to do that. So I am April Walker. I am, to ground myself in some type of space, I am currently residing in the Midwest, but I'm originally from the East Coast. A shout out to anyone from DC, Maryland, or Virginia. That's where my people hail from. I've worked in philanthropy for the past decade plus, starting actually as a grant maker, working at foundations, giving money away, which is what many people want to do and where they want to end their careers. But that's how I started. And then got into some consulting and philanthropic advising, and then made my way to fundraising. So that's only been within the past 4 or 5 years, actually. And all of those different opportunities sort of span different roles, different nonprofit organizations. And in the fall of 2021, I decided I needed to do my own thing because I felt very restricted by working not only for one nonprofit mission, but working as a Black leader, not being able to use my voice and service to the issues and causes that mean the most to me. And so I've been doing my own thing since then, and it was the best decision I've ever made. We'll talk more about it.
Amazing. Now, one of the things we ask all of our guests, and we love to get into the nitty gritty details because this is all about confessions, is can you share with us like how you get paid? What are your revenue streams? Who are your clients? What does your business look like?
Yeah, I love this question. So I get paid in cold hard cash. No, I
Yeah,
structure
you do.
exactly. And if it's one thing fundraisers can do, it's talk money. So hello. I structure most of my partnerships as monthly retainers. So very rarely do I do any work on an hourly basis. So that means if you want to work with me, we're going to have some sort of time bound nature of the project, which gives me great relief knowing that I am not married or embedded in an organization for an extended period of time. It just helps my sanity. Maybe we're doing a major gift strategy together. Maybe I'm coaching the development director. Maybe I am bringing in some practices and strategies specific to community-centric fundraising. And all of that work is going to happen on a monthly retainer basis. That could be $7,000 a month. That could be $2,100 a month. It depends on the client. I will say most of my nonprofit clients range from annual budgets of about 5 million up to 16 million. For foundations, because I work with those organizations as well, whether it's as a grant evaluator or helping them with their own equitable grant making practices. That work is also project based. So it's another monthly retainer for me. I was going to say something else. I forgot the second portion of your question, but maybe we'll get to it. Oh, I get paid for speaking engagements as well. So as Jess may or may not have mentioned, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn and on Instagram. And so I've appeared on a number of podcasts and panels. And over time, it's developed into a marketing strategy of sorts where I get paid to come and speak to boards. I get flown out to speak to whoever, and I quite enjoy that. So I would say 3 different revenue streams if we look at 2 different types of clients, nonprofits and foundations, and then speaking engagements as well.
I love that. And I'm so glad that it's both an income stream and kind of a dual marketing effort. That's so
Yep.
smart. Going back to your monthly retainer, I'm really curious if you started out with those compared to an hourly rate, or if you did an hourly rate and then evolved. Um, I think it's really common for folks to do the latter and then smarten up. But I'm just
Yeah.
curious as to how that evolution for determining, oh no, I do a monthly retaining fee. That's how I operate. How did that kind of happen?
Yeah, it was definitely a struggle, especially while I still had that 9 to 5 mentality of expecting a paycheck every 2 weeks and equating every hour of my time with a specific sort of value or outcome. But I have, I would say, one of the best business coaches in the world who just encouraged me early on to not think of partnerships in that way, because it, from her perspective, was a detriment to me. If I work very efficiently, I'm a very intellectual person, then I could be giving someone, 3 hours of work in 45 minutes. And how is that fair? So equating the value not just to the actual potential outcome from a fundraising perspective, but what feels fair to me. Like the value of my time is so much more than what I can achieve in 1 hour. So it's never a conversation. It's never on the table. There will not be client engagements that are billable hours in that way. It's just not how my business is going to be structured.
Yes. Oh my goodness. You said that so succinctly. I love it. Um, I I want to ask you if you're comfortable, because one of the things that I find there is such a lack of transparency in our sector about is speaking fees. And I'm happy to sort of contribute to this conversation as well. But I get asked to speak on stages and virtually, and the budgets go anywhere from like $0 to thousands of dollars. And it drives me crazy that this is something that we don't talk about or share with each other. And there's just such discrepancy. Are you comfortable shedding a little light on how you price your speaking?
Sure, I'm happy to, because I agree that salary transparency is huge and only benefits employers and others who have power. But I also want to offer a framing that I received from another consultant who has been doing this work for quite a long time. I'm happy to share names if that's helpful. It's Anna Barber. And I was in a conversation with her, and she explained that she, hopefully I'm representing this the correct way, but essentially, if she doesn't hear a number of no's when she's putting on a price, then she is pricing too low. So say maybe of every three, projects she puts forth, one or two of them should merit a conversation about the price. So if every time I put out a number, I'm always getting a yes, my immediate thought now is I should have asked for more. I should have asked for a lot more. Nonetheless, speaking engagement fees, absolutely, especially because I'm newer to this territory. I've priced anywhere from 6,500 up to over 10,000 for 90 minutes of my time, but that's including obviously preparation and planning and any amendments I need to make by virtue of being in conversation with folks. It is a privilege to hear me speak. I'll just offer that. But I also
100%.
I also think organizations have it and they don't bat an eye for certain types of initiatives. Board retreat budgets tend to be very large. And if you're actually curious about, the content and invested in it, then you will pay for it. I do a number of things that do not, come with a fee, but I'm always going to take the organization's budget into account. I'm going to take their leadership into account, and price it with the work that I know I have to do, especially if it's newer content, if it's a newer framing, if I can't pull from something that's kind of already in my wheelhouse. Oh, that's going to cost some money. And I'm happy to, hear your thoughts as well.
Well, I think just to even break it down step by step, maybe for folks who are listening in and they're like, oh my gosh, I want to be on stages. Like people need to hear me speak, that's something I would just be really interested in. I'm curious as to, because same, and I talk a lot about my what's the right even word? I'll just kindly say disapproval with especially some very large tech companies offering nada for getting people to provide content for them.
Can we
As
just,
some
not just tech companies, like there's sector conferences
Mhm.
that don't pay. I can name them. Like almost all of them. Let's be real. Almost
Yeah.
all of them. And they're not just tech. They're all.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just A total disappointment. And as someone that runs conferences and finds the budget to be able to pay even a modest fee, I have a lot of opinions. But I guess what I'm wondering is how did you graduate from, hey, April, we saw you speak at XYZ and we'd love to invite you to our speaking engagement. How do you initiate the conversation, maybe even in a step by step way of inquiring about a budget or saying, this is how I charge? Because in my experience, it's not generally offered up on a plate in the
Hmm.
request. And I think for folks who are just starting to want to speak on stages and get paid to speak,
Hmm.
hearing kind of your process would be really helpful.
Sure. And I have had instances where it's a part of the initial conversation. So it really, I think it's a lot of it is case by case. Um, my brain is moving too quickly. In terms of a step by step, I always want to take into account the topic, right? What am I being asked to talk about? And if someone is approaching me to talk about something that is not adjacent to equity, that is not adjacent to Black people, that is not adjacent to liberation, then I'm not actually the speaker for you. So there's no amount of money I should be discussing with you because you don't actually know enough about me, because the topic you're proposing, whether it's prospect research or something else, what evidence is there that I'm going to come and be impactful on that stage, right? I may know it and I may know how to do it, but there's a clear theme to how I approach this work. So the first thing I'm actually looking for is an alignment. Whether I know you or not, whether we're previous colleagues or not, is there an alignment in the actual content? If they have not offered up a specific budget to me, then I'm going to offer to them, happy to participate or continue conversations about said panel. This is going to take, I anticipate, 3 hours of planning time. I'm happy to offer a debrief and any follow-up engagement opportunities as well, which being additional, and I don't always have to offer, hourly rates, but this additional work plus the time that I spend actually leading or facilitating will cost X. Do you have a budget in the range of X and Y? And to me, that's the best way to sort of like just jump in directly and navigate it. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But I would say 8 out of 10 cases for me, folks have had the budget ready to go from the beginning, which sometimes is an asset and other times it's not, because having the conversation about it helps them reframe who they're reaching out to and why, because you shouldn't be reaching out to people asking them to do free labor anyway. So,
Yes. And I think like it sounds like you're doing a lot of speaking with organizations. And this is the part that I'm just going to rant for another minute and then we can change topics. But I find that I get paid for speaking from nonprofit organizations, like actual organizations to do like small or like, membership based conferences or board retreats or things like that. And they can find the budget, but it's the big conferences that don't like paying. Meanwhile, they're actually making profit on the conferences. And so, yeah, that I will say end rant. But it's I am curious about the business model of those conferences going forward, because I think a lot of people are just like, I won't, how can I get paid $6,000 to speak at a small little conference run by a charity, and this ginormous conference it will cost me to participate? I don't get
yes, I'll invite a little word known as greed into the narrative, because I think, when someone is an organization, entity, whatever, is focused very much on profit, they will have a clear indicator of what they will and will not invest in. And I think the three of us are probably of a mind where, sure, there are some stages we might like to be on, there are some rooms we might like to be in and could have positive effects for us moving forward, but at what cost? And that cost is not me volunteering my time for supposed learning for your benefit, right? Because if there is no investment on behalf of said learning, I'm not interested in performative sort of evolution, right? I want to actually have authentic engagement with people that are curious, or at least enough of you are curious that you're willing to bring me there and we can talk about the thing. But just to fake it, no.
Mm. April, you strike me as someone who has had a master class and is a master executor in all things boundaries. And as someone who struggles with that, I'd like to direct the conversation into boundaries. The real reason I initially reached out to you about having a conversation early in our podcast journey was because you were about to embark on a sabbatical. And that, coupled with how you have boundaries around how you get paid and what stages you say yes or no, and just all the things. It's just, I'd love to bring the conversation to how you have decided to not just establish boundaries, but stick with boundaries throughout your, relatively new entrepreneurial journey.
For sure. So I'm going to give some credit to my coach, Ria Wong, who I know you know. And we are 2.5 years, maybe slightly longer into our relationship, our coaching relationship and friendship at this point. And so she's always been this voice where if I hear her say something to me in March, I'm like, that sounds really extreme. But by May, I catch up and I'm like, that was the right thing to say. So I certainly have to give credit to being in a relationship where someone can tell me the honest truth and allow me to make my way there and, in my own time. Jess, if we were having this conversation 6 months ago, it would have been completely different. I think the era I'm in now is certainly one of knowing the benefits of exercising or executing personal boundaries in my own life and having that extend to my business as well, for my well-being, for my sanity. And I also recognize just how revolutionary it is that I'm able to operate and exist in the world in this way, right? The relationship that many Black women have with rest is incredibly harmful. The relationship that many Black women have with overworking, with not knowing ease, is incredibly harmful. And so I see what I'm doing by, the sabbatical you mentioned was me leaving my laptop in this country. And when Ria mentioned that, I thought she was crazy. Leaving the country, turning all the email off, and not doing anything. And it was honestly one of the best gifts I could have given myself. And quite frankly, it was a sabbatical light, right? It spanned about 3 weeks. I did end up in 2 different countries, 5 different cities. Like I was out here living. And it was really just a taste of the kind of rest and the kind of exploration that I plan to have inside of 2023, because I simply deserve that. But I also need that to be able to reimagine and reinvigorate what I'm bringing to my business. But yeah, I got pretty bold towards the end. You're going to get cut off on June 25th. If you ask me for anything, I have nothing for you. There will be no email checking. There will be no conversations. If you have my number, don't use it. Use it and plan to get ignored. I mean, it was such a necessary space for me. And knowing that, the last thing I'll say, women in my family, the women that came before me, never had such a chance, right? My mother she worked for the post office for 30 years. She could never just say, I'm taking 3 weeks off. I mean, she was in an environment where she couldn't take off to go to a family member's funeral. And she always told me to be my own boss. And now that I am, I'm not going to squander this opportunity, squander this moment by working so dang hard that I don't get to enjoy it.
That is so amazing and powerful. And just, I literally, Jess and I think we're both jumping to ask you questions. There's so many. So I'm going to start with one. And one of my favorite quotes by a guy named Michael Hyatt is that rest is not a reward for good work. It's a condition of good work. And I'd love to hear, not that your rest needs to be about work, but I'd love to hear about some of the, let's call them outcomes, or like what that rest allowed you to have in your life and in your, allowed for you in your thinking and all of that.
That's a beautiful framing. Many things. I would say primarily it was a reintroduction to myself. It was a reintroduction to elements of my personality, elements of my belief system that really just lie dormant when I am in work mode, when I am in serious mode, when I am in presentation or facilitation mode, right? It was like, you can be kind of funny. Oh, you don't mind riding on horses for 2 hours in Guatemala? Like, you don't mind just randomly making friends and talking to strangers at the pool? Like, you're okay with some of this uncertainty in the way that you're navigating the world? I think several of us maybe have learned at certain points in our careers, if you take a vacation, you need like a vacation before and a vacation after you actually do the thing, right? You shouldn't. It's not ideal to go to the beach and be like, I'm resting now, because you're going to be stressed. You're going to be thinking about work, and you're going to be anticipating, what's happening the next time you open your laptop. So really having enough time to have a moment where you forget about all of it. I just also recognize that the hardest thing about being an entrepreneur for me has not been the work itself. It's been the anxiety that I bring to the work. It's been the uncovering of what my relationship with rest and care, and specifically kindness to myself, is. It's not been the work. So many of us can handle the mechanics, but it's been what I put myself through because I haven't taken care of myself as I approach whatever the assignment is. And so my relationship with rest has to continue to evolve, because I'm the business, right? I'm the business. And if there's no better investment I can make, it's in myself.
Okay, April, we're back with rapid fire questions. Thanks for playing along. First question, coffee or tea in the morning?
Coffee, all the coffee.
How do you take coffee?
Man, as bold and strong as possible.
I love it. I personally am a tea drinker, but I respect the commitment to a bold hot drink in the morning.
I'm in a committed relationship with my Starbucks baristas. Thank you.
I love it. So we were talking about sabbaticals on your episode. Where, if you know, are you traveling to next?
Ooh, I have Jamaica, LA, and Belize coming back up by the end of the year.
By the end of the year?
Yes.
Incredible. And my last question is, what does the perfect weekend look like to you?
Oh my gosh, so restful, so quiet, probably a massage, a deep tissue or hot stone one. Time in nature. I live near Lake Erie, so time in nature, and then time with a friend, whether that's over brunch or on a couch or FaceTime.
Perfect. Thanks for playing.
Of course.
If you could see our chat right now, April, by the way, we just don't want to miss anything. So for the tactical practicalness that is all things Jess, I would like to step back and figure out from you what steps you took to actually make this sabbatical possible, right? You talked about having really hard boundaries, June 25th, poof, I'm gone, I'm going to ignore you, all the things. But what did you have to do in the lead up to that moment to actually make it happen, so that people listening in who are like, I want to take a 3-week sabbatical next summer, can start to think about those steps in motion?
Love this. And again, just for listeners, I'm going to be specific. That was my sabbatical light, right? Next year, we're going 6 to 8 weeks at a minimum. So we're just dipping our toe in to see what feels possible. The preparation really started in a conversation with my business coach, right? So finding someone to hold me accountable. I had been saying for a while, hey, I need a month off. Hey, I can't really think straight. I need some time. I need a day. I need more than a day, a week, a long weekend to not be doing this. And then that time approached, and she was like, you gonna take it? And I was like, oh, but I can't. What do you mean? Like, me leave the work behind? How could I? So having an accountability partner to say, you can, you should, you will. Also, there was a very odd, and I will get to a couple more specifics. I had a moment where I had gone shopping one day. Retail therapy is absolutely a thing. Ask my credit card. And I was like, why do I keep buying shoes? I have like 4 new pairs of shoes, nowhere to wear any of them. And I was like, you keep doing these really small, like barely Band-Aid things to make yourself feel better. Do the thing that you want to do. The thing that I wanted to do was leave the country, be away from everybody. And so I committed to it. I looked at my client like projection list. Where were contracts? Where was I at? What was I in the middle of? Picked a specific date. This main like anchor client that I had at the time was going to be wrapping up. I would be phasing into a sort of less hands-on role. So that was the date that I set. Began communicating that so that that specific client could know, don't add anything. Like, don't have any expectations that I'll continue to be here. New clients or new prospective business, I let them know, I'm happy to talk to you now. Don't expect me to start any actual work until early August. So this was around May, early June. I left the country on the 25th and found time to actually plan and figure out where I wanted to stay, what type of luxury I wanted to dive into. So leading up to that, I made clear to you, Jess, because we worked on something together, and others, these will be entirely blackout weeks for me. I got comfortable and made myself continue to use the word sabbatical, which was new for me. I didn't just want to say out of the office. I didn't just want to say out of the country. No, I wanted you to know that I was being intentional about not working. I'm taking a sabbatical and I have no interest in an urgent type of vibe right now. So there was an awful lot to sort of get to the finish line. But it was a matter of making sure that it was a date, a moment, a series of times that I was comfortable in actually stepping away, that things were going to be in a good place, having accountability to follow through on the thing, identifying someone, because I don't have a full-time assistant, to check anything that was going on. And there was maybe one or two things I was willing to be flagged about, neither of which manifested when I was out of the country. And then literally just starting to buy the stuff, right? Like, booking the flight, the mechanics of like, you're gonna go. And I was solo traveling. I was by myself. So like being my own travel agent, making myself prioritize that over whatever other deliverables were coming, because that became the focus. Hopefully that answers the question.
Oh, yeah. I want to dive a little deeper into like telling people you're not available, because I hear from consultants that they're scared to even take like a week off because they don't want to tell people they're not available for like anything. So can you talk about the experience of saying that? Like, I also want to preface it by saying, like, I think also you mentioned very early on, like, you know, wanting to do all these things. And I think a lot of what we are trained to do in our sector is to not have those things. It's not to take long periods off. So we have it as a hangover from like working in nonprofits and charities, where we're told like the work comes first. And then when we're running our own business, it's really all about like the clients come first. And like, I need to say yes to every opportunity because I need money and all that. That it's really hard to actually tell people that you have boundaries. So I'd love to hear how that went.
Yeah, I definitely struggled with it, or was hesitant to do it. Again, shout out to Ria for reminding me, what is the point of all of this if you're not going to live a life that you enjoy? Like, what is the point of all of this if you are not going to move in a way that is truly distinct from the requirements of being the chief development officer, allowing board members to call you on holidays or whenever suits them in their busy schedule? So what is the point? Like this, why doesn't this feel different to you from what you were doing? Because you're not creating an environment where it is clear to people that this is different. When you have access to me and you're a client, you have all of me. So therefore, when you don't, it took a lot of time and practice to be like, I'm going to miss that meeting, or I can't do that. I also have had clients throughout the country, right? I'm on Eastern time. So if I have clients in Washington or California, our schedules are completely different, making clear to them, I'm going to send you emails at 6 a.m. unless you ask me otherwise. I'm happy to schedule it to come later, but that's the time I'll be working. And no, at a certain point, I'm not going to accept meetings that are 7 p.m. my time. I have nothing to offer you or the world. We can meet earlier or you can fill me in after. But it took me a while to get there. It took me a while to draw that boundary because I felt like I had to always be accessible to them. I'm in a place now where I know when you having me at any point, like you've got enough of me, right? And if you need additional time that you're not getting or something, you'll either pay for that or find a way to accommodate what I am willing to give you. It's been learned. I didn't come in with this kind of affect. I definitely sort of came in a bit more passively, like, I'll take all the meetings. I'm really tired. I'm literally falling asleep on this board meeting that is a 6 p.m. time for them and 9 o'clock for me. Is that me giving my best work? Is that me offering what is actually meaningful? No. And so then being clear about that. And if you need something else, then that means we don't need to be together. A lot of breakups. But I have not had, this should be clear, any client relationships that have gone awry. Haven't had any who have responded to my time off or my days away, my unwillingness to check email in certain time periods with anything other than support. And so a lot of that is also living in our heads, right? If I tell them this, if I can't do this, then it's going to come crashing down and I'll never get that retainer fee again. It has not been true. So a lot of that what I was being put on myself. That's to say, just do really great work when you're actually on the clock. And when you're not, it's much easier for people to support you and say, Godspeed, go rest, enjoy yourself, bring me a keychain.
I love that. I love that. And I'm guessing that they probably respect you more, and people love to just be told what to do. So when you say, I'm not responding or I'm not answering or I'm away or this or that or the other, it's helpful to just know. So I just, and I love that you said that it wasn't just there. You've evolved to that. You've had to learn those behaviors. And I want to get into what working with a coach is like specifically. It sounds like Ria's been a great resource for you in a second. But while we're still talking about the sabbatical, I'm curious, how long did it take for you to actually be away, to separate, I know you said you didn't bring a computer and you were really out of the country and stuff. So physically you were distanced, but I know at least for me, when I go on vacation or I take time off, it takes a beat, a more than a beat, almost to the end of my vacation to be like, oh, I'm actually not thinking about work. I'm just curious what that kind of transition period was like for you. And if that plays into why the next time you take a sabbatical, it's going to be double or triple the time.
I love that. Yes. There was something really powerful for me, and maybe Rhea knew this and I didn't, about literally being away from the equipment, like being away from the actual machines that I use, from the environment that I'm in. So it took me less time than I anticipated. I would say by the third day, I was very much like, yes, the hardest thing I'll do today is walk to the pool and call over the bartender for my next mojito. I had settled into that pretty easily. And then I also got into a space that I actually get into most weekends, where I'm unwilling to check email on this soil. Like, I refuse. And so I had in mind that I would, start to ease back into it. The flights are pretty long. I could not do it until I actually landed back, not in this country, in this state, and was required to the following morning. And so that boundary in some way almost said itself. Like, I don't want to interrupt this space with anything other than the joy and freedom that I feel. Because it's too meaningful to me. It's too meaningful for me to invite in what I know is sometimes just inherently stressful. So I would say it took 3 days to kind of like find my stride. I pretty early on found my voice. I don't know if anyone's traveled alone, to a different country. It's a different experience than having, people with you and being with a group. And a willingness as well to kind of like spare no expense. Like, I'm here for an experience, so let me lean into the experience that I want to have. And on the other side, having an awareness too that I was bringing back a different type of energy with me as well, so that I had to protect what I was bringing, because I knew people had continued the grind in the meantime. I knew I was going to be catching up with 3 weeks plus of updates of things that I missed. Oh, so-and-so got fired. So-and-so left. Like, this was a fire. Oh, wow. Okay. Well, where do I fit into that? That's not my responsibility. You guys were doing okay. So how can I be of service to you now that that's where you are? So not picking up any of those things, not returning and feeling like I've got to carry the past 3 weeks of what I missed. I don't. I'm here to be of service. I'll hit play. We were on pause. I'll hit play on what matters to me, and I'll support you, but truly not feeling bad about any of it. Not feeling like I missed out on anything.
Love it. Can you tell us a little bit more about that experience coming back, and so you are very clear what happened while you were away, stayed where it was, but how was it for you to catch up or feel like you were back into the swing of things with work? And was it different in any way?
It definitely felt different until it felt the same. About like 2.5 weeks before I was like, ooh, wasn't long enough, April. You knew it wasn't long enough. But getting back into the swing of it, I definitely brought an ease, I think, and I would actually love to ask this of people that I was working with at the time. Um, Much more lighthearted, like here are some photos from the trip. Not that I needed to give you proof, but like I'm holding an iguana. Like look at this, right? I know philanthropy, but like this is me like a huge iguana. Can we have a moment for this? So like being as happy and joyful as I was as a reset to the space. Like sure there have been things going on, but it's me and an iguana. His name was Mr. Gomez. So that's honestly what I'm thinking about. And we'll get to the fundraising because we always do. So showing up very authentically. I don't share lots of my personal life or anything, but allowing myself the freedom to do that. You can love it, you can hate it, but like I've got to continue to honor what this was to me. And I told you about it in the beginning. Told you it was a sabbatical. Told you I was leaving for Belize and other places. Didn't even know I would go to Guatemala. And closing that out in almost a way. And intentionally letting folks almost vent because of the relationships that we have or however the client engagement is, feeling like they had so much they wanted to unload and just listening, but not feeling like I should have been here, not feeling like I owed you anything. You got it off your chest and we'll hit play on the work. But allowing myself to continue the thread of the joy that was fabulous rest, fabulous excursions, delicious food. Yeah.
Ugh, dreamy, 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 dreamy. I want to circle back as we wrap up our question about this accountability partner, this investment it sounds like you've made early on in your business with working with a coach with Ria, who has been on our podcast. We're big Ria fans over here. And I'm just curious, it takes some people so long to get to that place to make that investment. I know Cindy also has a coaching program, and it is one of, I think, the first things she works on with her clients around making important investments in their businesses. And so I'm just curious to how you got there. It sounds like so super fast, if that was luck or if were watching some other business owner, or, for other people listening in that are like, wow, I want to have a business like April's that seems to be in flow and with ease. And she but she decides to take sabbaticals. She works on her own terms. You just mentioned your coach several times. And so I'm just curious as to how you came to have that.
Yeah. It would have been so easy to break up with Ria many times. I love her. I love her. But there are things as my coach, quite frankly, and Cindy, I'd love to hear from you about this, that she can say to me that I feel like nobody else can. And that's because pretty early on, she got to the core of what I was. She saw what this could be before I was even like willing to peek at it, right? Our relationship was supposed to be completely different. I had to furlough half my team early in the pandemic. So I was holding on to the threads of my development department, and the little sanity I had left. Did not expect to be in that position. So she was really supposed to be a thought partner specific to fundraising. And being the authentic, down to earth, no BS type of person that she is, she got to the core that the issue wasn't really, pandemic stuff. It was that, okay, you're in an environment where you're playing small. You're in an environment where you can try things, but it's also Cleveland. It's not the most progressive place in the world. So like, what is actually turning all of this on its head look like? So I was concerned when I left that previous job and how I would continue to invest in this coaching relationship because I didn't want to lose her. And so we were able to work something out. I didn't meet her in the flesh until March of this year, and we started working together in 2020. So having that trusted relationship, having someone to provide counsel and is willing to say, "This, I experienced this before. You might want to try it this way," and to push me is just invaluable. So I can't imagine. I wouldn't be here if not for her, and she doesn't always take that credit, but I really wouldn't. She had said many times before, "Why don't you just leave?" And another time when she said it, I just heard it differently and I was ready. And she stayed with me through that. And now that I've had a year and some change under my belt, she's still there and she's still helping me think bigger about everything I do does not have to be in exchange of my time for a specific amount of money. So how can you, flip it again? And sometimes I'm like, girlfriend, can listen, right? But it's always in service to me having, designing, and maintaining the life that I say I want, but then I'm still afraid to cultivate. So
I love it. Shout out to Ria. She's best of the best. Okay, as we wrap up, everyone needs to know about you, April. So for folks who want to follow along, listen to and watch your content, where is the best place for folks to find you?
good question. So you can sign up for my newsletter via my website. Just scroll down to the bottom. We can stay in touch that way. There's also an archive of all the podcasts and articles and such that I've written. I'm very active, pretty loud on LinkedIn, so you can follow along there as well. And then Instagram is usually like a running sort of update of A, my opinions, but B, other places to engage with me in terms of panels, podcasts, events, etc. So you got a couple options. My website, thankyoufforthepeople.com, Instagram, same name, and then LinkedIn under April C. Walker or the business name as well.
Amazing. You have been a blast to chat with today. Thank you for your transparency, for your details, for your processes. I think that everyone listening in is going to enjoy this conversation so, so much.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate you both.
Thank you again for listening to the Confessions podcast for nonprofit coaches and consultants. If you enjoyed today's episode, which I sure hope you did, you can show your support in one of three ways.
Number one, post a screenshot of this episode to your Instagram stories or LinkedIn profile and tag Cindy and I so we can repost you.
Number two, share this podcast with a fellow nonprofit coach or consultant.
And number three, leave a positive review on Apple Podcasts so we can continue to grow and reach new listeners.
And of course, make sure you subscribe so you can get the latest and greatest interviews as they drop every Thursday.
And to our fellow nonprofit coaching and consulting friends, remember, we're an open book and here to answer your burning biz questions.
See you next time.